My name's Frank Zacarri, and this is Life Altering Events. Now, a number of people have asked me for an update on where my up and coming book is, and so here's where we are. The book is with the publisher, and it appears we're going to shorten the name. The original name was "The Secret to Walking on Water is to Know Where the Rocks Are," and it looks like it's going to be shortened to "Walking on Water." Now, it's not biblical, but it's also easier to read in the title. This is going to be the final detailed edit before it moves to formatting and color graphic and copyright protection and all those other things that you have to do. So we're hoping in a few months we'll see the book, and I will keep everyone posted. So thank you for your interest. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about something: what we resist persists. Okay. Now, did you ever notice that life, or the spirit, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it, has a funny way of making sure we're listening and we respond to the message? Not funny, haha, funny, strange. Now, I recently read an article about a woman who had been a high stress job, and then she had set up a side hustle. So she was busy all the time, and she was tired all the time, and it started to impact her health. And she was waking up late, getting the kids late to school, went out on a date with her husband, fell asleep on date night. Things just weren't going well. It was causing a lot additional stress at work, at home, the whole thing. Then one day she's driving home, has an accident, hits a tree, breaks her shoulder, breaks her arm. Now she's in the hospital for multiple days and then home doing recovery. Now, the message was slow down, take care of yourself, but she wasn't listening. And life comes back and says, well, you didn't learn that lesson that time. Let's try this. Let's see if this gets your attention this time. Now that if she had listened, maybe we would have avoided this. Does this sound familiar? Is this something that we do on a regular basis? Now, many of us can't or won't get out of our own way, even if it's in our own best interest. Then there are people like my guest today, Carolyn Lebanowski, who is tuned in and is open to what the spirit or the universe or life, the messages that it's sending. Now, this doesn't mean that her life was easy or without challenges, but she finds a way to make the best of the situation and moves forward. So Carolyn, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. We had a great talk, and I said, I have to have this woman on TV.
I just need to say, I love that book title. That is great. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Mine, they said, hey, it's a good title, Frank, but it's too long. So we need to shorten it. And I said, okay, well, that's why I'm paying you. So let's get it done.
I love it.
Good. Thank you. Now, Carolyn, this is something very interesting when we spoke. You had reached the top of the mountain in the retail world. You had a big job, big title, big income. You were strategic and an organizational development expert, nice house, the whole thing. All right. You were living the dream. And then, as happens so often, the corporation pulls the rug out from under you. What happened?
It was unexpected, but it was time. And what that means is I didn't know it was coming, but I also knew at the same time there was something inside of me that was uncomfortable, or I was too comfortable. There you go. I was too comfortable, but I knew that there was something else I wanted to do, but I had no idea what it was. I had spent 27 years with one company in retail doing one thing. I had no skill set, or so I thought, to do anything else. But I knew that I wanted to do something else. So that's kind of where the journey began. And then the story from there is about listening to your inner guidance. Do you want to go there?
Sure.
Okay. So I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was kind of okay with that, but I was in the discovery. So I kept asking myself these questions. What's next? And nothing came up, nothing. And then I get a phone call, and they left a message and asked me if I would like to be the executive director for this nonprofit organization in Houston, Texas. It was like, I don't even know what an executive director does. But I thought, you know what? I'm just going to start saying yes to my life. I'm just going to start saying yes to the things that I have no idea what I'm doing. So I went for an interview and I was very intrigued. And I said yes. I said yes. And I said yes for half the salary that I was making. But I knew that I was signing up for a mission and for a cause, and that I would be able to add value in a way that I had never been able to do so before. And I was willing to take that risk. It was the scariest thing I ever did. And it was without hesitation brought me the greatest joy in my life besides my 3 children.
Mhm. I read a post, I think you may have posted it today, and it was an article that Kimberly Davis wrote.
Mhm.
And you put down, it's how you continue to bring yourself back to what you want, what you want that matters. Okay. It's who do you want to be in your story? Right. Is that where you were at that point?
That's exactly right. Because at some point we make choices on, we can continue to take those steps. We continue to make those choices that are not directed by other people, but maybe they're expectations. When people look at you, this is what you should do next. And at some point you have to ask yourself, not what other people think, but what do I think? And where is my heart, and how do I want to play this out? And, Frank, for me, I look at so many parts of my life as chapters and seasons. And there is an ending and there is a beginning. And I don't care how old we get until we die, that's the last chapter. But so every single chapter or season has its time. And the question that Kimberly brought up is like, who do you want to be in that story? I could have very easily stayed on and stayed in retail, but it was not who I wanted to be in that story. I knew there was something else, and I paid attention.
It's outstanding. Now, you stayed in Houston when this thing occurred, and as you mentioned, you got involved with a nonprofit. Now, having been a corporate executive myself and having helped a nonprofit, what kind of adjustment was that?
Oh, dear God. The first 3 months, I thought to myself, what did I do? Like, what did I do to make this decision? And it's a culture difference, Frank. It was from big corporation to, and lots of voices, to all of a sudden less voices, but more important decisions and choices and conversations were taking place.
Right.
And that is what started to resonate with me. That was the conversation about the things that mattered to me at the time, and not just simple retail math or what color shirt is going to be on the sales floor or, best HR hiring practices. It was about what's happening in the world, what's happening with people, and where are you making a difference? And that is hard work. That is hard work.
It's very hard.
Mhm.
It's very difficult. Now, Carolyn, when we spoke, you said something that I thought was just like a profound moment. You said to me, I know what I want, but not what it looks like.
Mhm.
Expand on that.
Where I think I got over my biggest hurdle was that right there, because I think we as humans, we tend to know what we want, but then we have to figure out how to get there. We've got to, in our brains, our intellectual capacity says, okay, we need to do A, B, C, and D, or it will never happen. If you take a minute and let go of that and say, this is what I want, I have no idea how I'm going to get there, because it's not up to me. It's not. It is up to a higher thinking. It's up to the way that things shape in the universe. It is about belief. It is about faith. It is about, and I'm not saying don't do anything. I mean, that's not what I mean, but it is, because if I try to figure it out, A, I'm not going to get it right. And B, then it may show up in a way that I didn't expect. And then it's not what I wanted at all. So that kind of goes for me in what we talked about in high participation, low attachment.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want something, I think I want something, I'm highly participative. My heart, my head is in the game, but I have no attachment to the outcome. So it means I don't have to figure out how it works. I don't have to. I just let it happen.
Mhm.
And that is where the magic is.
I love that. It's almost like something's calling or pulling or dragging you in a
Sometimes
direction,
dragging.
right?
Sometimes dragging.
And many of us, I can't do that because this is what I am. This is what I do. This is what I was trained for. And when we spoke, you said something that, well, are you living your life, or are you living a life that someone told you you should be living? Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And
That was,
we have
go
the
ahead,
freedom,
go ahead.
we have the freedom to make those choices if we're brave,
Absolutely.
if we're brave enough.
Yes. And that's the key, is that you can see it's there, or it continues, like we said in the beginning, life is hitting you. Hey, take a look at this. And then you don't. So it's just like a little tap on the shoulder. Then it's a little push. And then it's a hit you on the head with a 2x4. Come on,
Pay
let's
attention.
pay
Right.
attention. Let's get with the program here. Carolyn, you were doing very well with this nonprofit. You learned the process. You went through the how a nonprofit works versus profit for profit, and then you meet Dr. Temple Hayes. All right, what happened? That was a major life altering event. What happened with Dr. Hayes?
So Temple Hayes and I have been friends and mastermind partners for about 15 years. And so she's been with me for a long time in a lot of these chapters and seasons that I've been talking about. And as she is starting to open and run her businesses with First Unity Spiritual Campus and now the Institute International Leadership and Lifelong Learning International, ILLI.org, as she was brainstorming this child, she called me and said, I'm just mastermind this with me. This is what I see. This is where my heart is. And then she asked, would you be interested in being a part of this with me? That would have never been on my radar, Frank. I mean, it's just something that just came out of the blue. And what I said earlier, I've started saying yes to my life. I'm just saying yes. And I said, absolutely, absolutely. So she and I got involved, and I got to play in her sandbox for a little bit. And the more we worked together, it was just, there's a natural connection with Temple and I. And at that point, she said, you know what? Would you like to come and be a part of First Unity Spiritual Campus as our chief operating officer? It's like, I live in Houston, Texas. You live in St. Petersburg. And she was like, so what? And I said, so you want to try this thing, me doing it from here and helping you with this organization and being a part? She goes, absolutely. And I said, absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. Why not? So it has been 9 months, and it has brought me the greatest joy and filled my heart to be able to not only work with Temple, but to be a part of both of these amazing organizations that are really making a difference in changing the world.
Now, I've had Temple Hayes on my radio show. She's going to be on the TV show in a few months here. And I think you make a great counterbalance for her, because she is way up here with thoughts. And she thinks like people breathe. She's got more ideas and more concepts. And now let's do this. And then she look at you and you say, let's take a deep breath here. How is that working out, that counterbalance?
You know what? It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect, because she is the visionary, and she is the dreamer, and she is the out of the box thinker. And I am, and she teases me. I mean, I'm about the details. I don't want to put things in a box, but dots do connect, and we have to figure out how to get there. And there has to be some healthy boundaries, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I bring that part, but let me tell you too, I'm gonna be really clear on this, where she has helped me is that, and this is where we help each other, I bring her closer to maybe a little boundary, and she helps me broaden what I'm looking at in the world, and that it always doesn't have to be that way. It can look different than what I think it should look like. And that's where it just becomes a great circular conversation. And when Temple and I are together, and I told her this the other day, when we're talking or masterminding or brainstorming or creating or co-creating something, I always feel like it's a spiral energy and it's a spiral up. It's always a spiral up. It's never flat. It's never down. It's just up. And that is the energy that Temple Hayes brings to the table.
It's very reminiscent of a book that I read in the high-tech world. It was called Inside the Tornado. And you get these people thinking who all want to go in generally the same direction. But then there's that what and how and what if and all that. And this tornado effect starts picking, and everybody rises. Is that what you see?
Exactly it. That is exactly it. And I've seen it, she has built and created the most amazing team, for both organizations. And I now have the privilege to be in that circle. But to watch it happen on the front row is pretty amazing.
It's incredible. Now you run a mastermind program, which is fairly new. Tell us, what's this about? How does this work?
Mastermind, and when I say we run a mastermind program, Temple and I just happen to be mastermind partners. And mastermind would be a whole different show on itself if we'd like to review that later. But basically, it is two or more people coming together, and it's holding a space for one another. It's sharing, it's asking about what, and again, you don't have to see how it happens, but it's asking about what you want and how you want to show up in the world, or things that you need, or things that you want to manifest. And a good example, and I'm going to use this again, Temple used this when she was explaining it to somebody the other day. If, let's say, Frank, you wanted a new Porsche. And so you're going to ask the mastermind, and you're talking to me, and you're saying, I really want a Porsche. I've read Porsche, I want it, I see it, I just know I want this. Well, I can hold the vision for you that you have this Porsche, and I can see it's already happened. You, on the other hand, you're asking for a Porsche, but maybe in your paradigm or your story, you don't think that you deserve a Porsche. You had a friend who had an accident in a Porsche one year, and that might not be a good thing. You have something about red cars that was something in your childhood so you might have some stories around a Porsche. You want it, but these underlying factors are there. I don't have those for you because I don't have any of your old stories. So by holding that in a mastermind, higher, prayerful, meditative space, it is more likely, again, energetically, that something will occur for you, that a Porsche will show up in your life. Mm-hmm. I cannot tell you the number of things that Temple and I have masterminded together that have occurred. And working together is one of them.
It's I've heard some people say it's this mind spirit thing. I have this mind spirit body. I want it. There's my spirit. I have got it now in my mind, and it will impact the actions that I take. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's masterminding is not the same thing, but it parallels somewhat to vision boarding. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what experience you have there, but I am a firm believer in vision boarding. In other words, you're putting these visions actually on a board of the things that you want in your life. You don't know how to get them. And I'm gonna break away and tell you just a really quick story, is that my husband and I have been doing this for 10 years. And in every mastermind board we create, and usually it's about family, it's about health, it's about travel, we have had pictures of Portugal on our vision board, knowing that someday that this, we want to be on the water, we want to be someplace warm, we want to be on another continent. And on January 1st, Wayne and I are moving to Portugal.
Wow.
We're picking up our life and we are moving to Portugal. And this is a byproduct. It is just a byproduct of what we have had in our mind and in our heart. And it has been it's not been an everyday, what are we going to do to get to Portugal? That's not been at all. It has been an intention, and it has just happened because we're paying attention.
That's incredible. I had a conversation with Janet Atwell of the Passion Test. She wrote the book, The Passion Test. And one of the things she said was, we sometimes we have a why or a what, but we get stuck on the how. And she kept saying, forget the how. Start moving forward, focus, and the how will happen. That's what sounds like your case.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
That's wonderful. Now, Carolyn, in addition to everything else that you do, you're a very gifted writer. And one of your messages is find your faith.
Hmm.
Okay, what message are you sending there?
Finding your faith is kind of what you just said about trying to figure out the how. If you find your faith, you don't have to understand the how, because the faith is kind of the how, that's the invisible how. So faith in what happens, and whatever happens, I have the faith that this is going to unfold in the way that it should, not always the way that I want it to look. That is the faith. So something that's not necessarily even perceived as a good thing, I have pure faith that it was the right thing.
And then accepting. And the
Even if
accepting part, which is the difficult part for many.
it's very difficult. I didn't mean to imply it was easy.
Yeah.
But if you have the faith, then you'll understand in the end why it happened. You know, one of the things that I practice in the spirit of that, Frank, is gratitude. And yes, my life has not been easy. I've had some heavy burdens to carry. One of them being an addiction in our family. And in the spirit of that, I had a sense of gratitude every single day. And all I kept saying was, thank you. Thank you for this happening. Thank you, because it's making me a better person, a better mother. It's making me stronger. It's making everyone in the family come up in a different way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That is a choice versus I easily could have spiraled down. I could have spiraled down in shame and heartbreak and disappointment, but we didn't. None of us did. None of us did. We held that space of gratitude and faith, and not knowing how we were going to make it better. It didn't matter. We had faith that it would, and we were grateful.
I've heard that many times. I've heard it put more, I'm not happy for what occurred, but I'm happy that it did occur, because it put me in a different space. It made me a different individual, and it made me better more times than not.
And when you're in it, it's not that easy. It's sometimes it is only in the hindsight, but you don't have to do anything. It is my best practice to stay in that space of gratitude, knowing with faith on the other side, I'm going to see the reward. I'm not feeling it right this minute. And matter of fact, it feels really not good.
Right.
Really not good. And that's okay to feel really not good.
You also wrote something right along those lines. This fits perfectly. You said to listen to the churn in your belly and the goosebumps on your arms. They're not sensations. Expand on that.
Well, I wrote that particular passage for my children, and it was a lesson that I wanted to pass on to not to minimize that. I think those goosebumps on our arms and the churn in our tummy, we just think, oh, I don't feel well, or I'm cold, but it's not. It is so much bigger than that. To me, that is that still small voice. That is your inner guidance. That is your inner knowing. That's what that churn is. You know it's not right. If you're in a scenario and you feel something, I'm inviting my children to pay attention to that and not to minimize it, because I think there are gifts, there are intuitive gifts that are inside of that. If you pay attention and if you listen, you will know.
Well, when we spoke, you said something to the effect of, when we pay attention and we get out of our own way, the right doors will open. And that's falling right in line with this whole conversation we're having, correct?
Yes. Yeah. I think sometimes, like we talked about in the beginning, Frank, we kind of set our roadmaps, and then we put these, what are those things called in bowling alleys? Are they bumpers?
Bumpers, that's right.
Bumpers, thank you. We put these bumpers on kind of our path, and just to make sure we don't get too far off. And so we're really safe. and we're smart and we're kind of going to do what we think we're supposed to do. And that's fine for some people. That is perfectly fine. The conversation here, Frank, is that there is an opportunity for all of us to take off the bumpers, all of us. And it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, because it becomes a life driven with intention and faith in your inner knowing versus a life that you are just doing something because you think you are supposed to.
And there's a lot of people that aren't living their life because they're living their fear.
That's well said. Very well said. Well said.
There's something I want to do, too afraid to take the step. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to add to that is that somebody, I think I was in my teens, and this might have been like something that might have started the trajectory of kind of my own kind of thought process. But somebody asked the question, if you knew you had 6 months to die, what would you do?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this is exercise. And so you list all these things. And then of course, the end of the exercise, well, why are you waiting?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right? Why are you waiting? So that really opened me up to the possibility of I really need to, I want to start doing these things that may be a little unusual, maybe a little different, because we don't know how long we have. It could be
right.
6 days, and it could be 60 years. It doesn't matter.
And you don't want to look back and live your life with regret. That was something my grandfather used to say all the time. At the end of it, when it's all said and done, don't have regrets.
You know what? Thank you. Speaking of grandparents, that is what my grandmother told me on her deathbed. And I asked her, I sat right next to her and I said, Grandma, do you have any regrets? And she said, yes, I do. And I said, do what? And she said, I always wanted to paint my fingernails red, but Grandpa didn't want me to. So I never painted them. Really? Really? She goes, he just didn't want them, but I always wanted them to be red. And I said, Grandma, do you want me to paint your fingernails red now? Because I will. I will. And she was like, oh, it's okay. But on your deathbed, to have this one little thing that you really could have done, but you didn't, that kind of leaves my heart heavy.
Yes, absolutely. It does. It does. Now, Carolyn, you're in the process of writing a book, and it was called Please Take This With You. What's this book going to be about without giving everything away?
Right. Okay. Well, I'll tell you how it started. And I started writing letters to my children on their birthdays every year that they were born. And these letters were very personal, one-on-one to the child from me as their mother, and how we both experienced that year. So it didn't have to do with any other family member. It didn't have to do with dad. It was just me and this child.
Mm-hmm.
And I would write about how they had grown and how they were showing up and their characteristics and how I had grown with them on that particular year. So all of a sudden now, 3 kids later, and they're in their late 20s, and I have all these letters, and I started reading back on them. I'm like, man, that's pretty good. Because I was giving them also kind of some life lessons, things I was passing on to them, things that I wish that somebody had told me when I was 12 or, when I was 16. And so I started collecting them and I started reading them. And then I was in a restaurant one night by myself, and I had a napkin. And I took the napkin, I asked for a pen, and I drew this book cover, and it said, please take this with you. And it just came to me that all of this writing that I've been doing for 28 years has some story to it. And it has some heart and some lesson and some pieces of it that I know can be paved forward. So it's a personal note to my kids, to my children, to say, please take this with you. In other words, this is my legacy that I'm leaving behind for my wisdom that I'm paying forward and that I'm sharing. And that's kind of the premise of it.
That's outstanding. we had a similar thing in my family. One of my brothers decided to become the family historian, and we had grandparents came from Italy and Sicily, and he went and he interviewed all of them and
Wow.
had them all on tape, and he wrote all these individual stories. And then when my mother died, someone had said, we should write a book about this, about the family. And we said, well, where are we going to get all the data? And my brother says, I have it. I have it all. All right. And so he sent it to me. And it was, Carolyn, it was boxes and boxes. And I said, well, we got to weed this down a little bit. But that became a book that we wrote collectively as a family called Inside the Spaghetti Bowl, which was sort of the legacy of the family and the things that they went through. And it's something that I hope, and I'm sure you feel the same, that is passed through your children to your grandchildren and down the road, so they have a sense of where they came from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. The spaghetti bowl.
Inside the spaghetti bowl.
I love it. I love it.
The story, not to get off track here, but I was writing the book, and I owned an insurance agency at the time, and one of my customers retired Marine, right? Marines are always Marines. So I was telling him about it, and he just, he's about 80 years old at that time. He just sat there, didn't say a word, not listening to anything I'm saying. And then he leans forward and he goes, inside the spaghetti bowl, Frank. And I looked at him, and he said, well, spaghetti, mix everything together. Sometimes it comes out good, and sometimes not so much. He says, that's how families are.
Oh, perfect.
So I said, okay, I'm going to give you credit in the book.
I love it. I love it.
I'm not going to pay you anything, but I'll give you credit. Well, Carolyn, with all you've done and all you've accomplished, and you've accomplished a tremendous amount in your life, and we're getting short on time here, what final thoughts do you want to leave with the viewers around the world today?
To live a life you love. Be intentional. Have faith. Trust your instincts. Find those goosebumps and listen to the churn in your tummy, because that will be your compass for a life well lived. Yeah.
I love that. That is a great way to wrap this thing up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I said, we're just about out of time. I want to thank my guest, Carolyn. What an inspiring story. What a moving, life-altering story. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, no matter what life throws at you, please do 3 things. Look up, get up, and never, ever give up. Pick up the pieces and start moving forward. And as you heard from Carolyn, better times and better people will come into your life. If you'd like to hear more about Carolyn, you can contact her directly or contact me, and I'll make sure that it gets to her. You can see this show on ROKU TV under Life Altering Event channel. You can see it on my YouTube page, and I will send links to Carolyn when it's getting ready to air, and she'll post it to all the places that she puts information on. So let me leave you with this, ladies and gentlemen, as I do every week. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Carolyn showed us where many of those rocks are. Join me again next week. We discuss another life-altering event. Thank you very much.